I see like a society where it's interesting. I see an energy that women have where instead of competing with themselves, like to be the best version of themselves, I see an odd competition with men that's very strange to me. For example, I go to the gym, I work out, and I grew up in a world where like it was Sarah Connor from the Terminator and, you know, do the pull-ups and all that. And I even got caught up in that for quite some time, like in this world of like, oh, these are the guys in the gym working out. Well, I got to be right alongside them. The only difference is like, I'm not a man. So I'm not going to be able to lift as heavy. I'm not as physically strong. I'm never going to be as physically strong. That's just a reality. That's a biological fact. But I see women in all different areas of life competing with men as if they're the same, and that's possible. We're not the same. Do you see that?
Most certainly. I mean, you look at what they're doing with sports and how I know this isn't a part of the topic, but it kind of is. When you know you got these trans women that are trying to introduce themselves into female sports, and then they're out competing them. It's the same sort of thing. It's like they're seeing it and recognizing it because they might have accepted them into their sport, and then when they saw just how much these guys or trans are demolishing them, then they're like, okay, wait a minute, hold on, maybe we made a mistake, because now they're winning every single competition, and we introduced them, we welcome them into our sport with open arms as women would do, but now they're stepping all over us. So yeah, it's not a wise idea for women to want to compete with men on any level. I mean, not just on the physical, but you know, when you think about it, you don't want to compete with something that you're not. You I will never be a woman, so I don't want to compete with women on any level. You know what I'm saying? um it's basic, it's simple,
It sounds
it's logic.
simple. It does sound simple, but I think because we live in a society now where you can't even acknowledge a basic fact that men and women are different. Like you can't even say men are men, women are women, and they're different, right? I said the
No.
other day, like you got to be, you know, on the edge of your seat, like you're going to be canceled if you say just a basic fact
Right.
like that. So people are afraid to vocalize that and take it where it's going to go mentally. Well, if women are trying to act like men and like what's going on here, this is not going to be good for society. And this idea of competing is so interesting to me because I feel like women are looking at the world and at some point they got the message like this is a man's world. And I know how they got the message because I got it too. I was in high school and I was getting fed like this is a man's world. And if you want to compete in a man's world, you have to compete like a man. And even though I feel like I didn't internalize a lot of this, and I sat here on this show at the start and I was like, I didn't. When I went home and I thought about it, I was like, I grew up wanting to be Sarah Connor from Terminator 2, not Terminator 1. And I thought I was going to, you know, be like all badass and I was going to go box at the gym. And the reality is I'm like 120 pounds dripping wet and I look like this. So odds are, you know, like let's just deal in reality. So I don't know, like what bothers me about it is like so many women don't appreciate like what's unique to us anymore. Like the fact that we're nurturing and the fact that we're feminine and the fact that we have a softness to us. That's so beautiful. And we don't embrace it. Why? Like men like it. So why don't why?
Yeah, it's I was looking at a video recently, and and it was very clear. It was a bunch of college students, a bunch of females, and it was very clear that they were followers and not leaders. It was as if the information that had been pushed to them, since it felt right in that moment, is just what they allowed to stick. So, you know, it's like they took it, ran with it, and thought, you know what, we can compete with men on any level, no matter what the activity or sport is, I can't even say it right, academics or athletics, we can compete. But because they saw a few women that were winning against these men, they thought that all of them were capable of doing so. Yeah, it's not reality.
It's just not reality. And truthfully, like you're not going to be happy as a female competing with men because you're never going to get there. You know, if I say to myself, like, I'm going to judge my success by me competing with my husband at the gym, that's a joke. I mean, I'm going to feel really bad about myself every time I come upstairs because he can bench press me with like, he can literally just take me and be like, ooh, you know, like it's like a day at the park. It's a stroll at the playground. And I'm sitting there like fighting with my 15s and 20s. I'm like, yeah, you know, so it's just, it's gonna, and I wonder if that's why you have this kind of epidemic. And you know, you do have an epidemic of unhappy men as well, don't get me wrong, and men that aren't having sex, and men that are lonely, and men that are staring at video games all day long. When you have this epidemic of unhappy women, I think because they're trying to process and internalize that message of like, compete with a man, it's a man's world, you got to be like a guy, and they're not happy behaving like a guy because they're not a guy, you know? So it's a mess. If you want to watch the full episode, you're going to click right here. And if you want to ask me a question one-on-one, you want to do a one-on-one FaceTime with a group of your friends, whatever you want, you need to download Minect right now. Click right here and let's get talking.